Yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you, Council. At this moment, I'd like to give the opening to Councillor Zwaagstra, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been following an interesting political battle out in Alberta between a former Calgary school trustee and the school board in which she used to serve. Last week, Calgary school trustee Lisa Davis announced her resignation from the Calgary Board of Education. But it was not a normal resignation. Unlike the typical bromides we usually see from politicians who step down, Davis said nothing about wanting to spend more time with her family or pursuing a new career path. Instead, Davis released a scathing statement in which she denounced a recent board motion that hamstrings her ability to fulfill her duties as a trustee. This motion, passed at an emergency board meeting last Sunday evening, required that a board lawyer be present when trustees spoke to a provincially appointed auditor tasked with reviewing the board's finances and governance. Needless to say, this motion was an obvious attempt to bully this trustee into silence. First elected in 2017 on a platform promising education reform, Davis often chafed against restrictive governance policies. For example, Calgary trustees must get motions approved behind closed doors before bringing them forward for public debate in a formal board meeting. This made it nearly impossible for trustees like Davis to get any motions on the floor unless they already had support from the majority of the board. There is no better way to entrench the status quo than to prevent open debate between elected officials. Of course, it is easy for us to look at an isolated case in another province and shake our heads at the mess the Calgary Board of Education finds itself in right now. But if we are honest with ourselves, we recognize that the temptation to make decisions behind closed doors outside of public scrutiny is one that all politicians, particularly at the local level, must constantly resist. There are many reasons why we might want to make decisions behind closed doors. Council members can speak more freely. We don't have to worry about looking foolish in front of our friends and neighbors when discussing controversial issues. The public won't understand what we're talking about anyway, so it might as well be done behind closed doors. However, these so-called reasons are little more than excuses. As elected officials, we are not corporate board members whose primary responsibility is to a company's bottom line. Instead, we are council members elected by the public and ultimately responsible to Steinbach voters. The people of Steinbach have the right to not only hear about our decisions, but to understand how we came to the decisions that we made. An unhealthy level of secrecy is one of the most consistent governance problems in elected bodies across Canada. Local politicians make far too many decisions behind closed doors, and this leads to poor decision-making. As municipal governance expert George Cuff once said, it's important to remember that just because an issue might be controversial, this doesn't make it confidential. There is no quicker way to lose the trust of our constituents than to hide important information from them. Of course, there are times when discussions must happen behind closed doors. Like other councils, we do not discuss specific personnel issues in public. We also cannot publicly discuss possible land purchases or sales, because then the prices of the land that we're looking at could change dramatically. In addition, legal matters are also appropriately addressed in closed-door meetings. Nevertheless, as a city, our goal is to be as open and transparent as possible. Not only are our regular council meetings and SPC meetings open to the media and the public, we even record our meetings and put them online. That way, people who cannot attend the meetings can go online whenever they want and watch exactly what was said at a council meeting. Anyone who has attended one of our public hearings will quickly see that far from decisions being predetermined long in advance, we have real and sometimes rather contentious debate on the matters before us. Democracy in action is messy. Council members have been known to change their minds in our meetings, sometimes more than once. When a councillor's motion doesn't get a seconder, that's rather clear evidence that we aren't just following a predetermined script. When you watch one of our council meetings, you will see 7 ordinary people from different walks of life coming together to figure out the best direction for our city. We aren't perfect. There are always things we can do better. However, I am proud of the fact that as a city, we strive to make our meetings as open and transparent as possible. Let's continue to make openness and transparency a priority in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zwaagstra, and for that reminder to keep public business done in public. Number 3, we've got the agenda in front of us. Council, looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, we have the minutes of January 21, 2020, the regular council meeting. It starts on page 1. Council, we've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Zwaagstra, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments? I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Yes, Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just make a motion to excuse Councillors Jake Siebens and Bill Hebert from today's meeting.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Hebert. Okay. There'll be no comments on that. Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, that brings us to number 6, the public hearing. It's just a little after 7:35. It is Variance V-2020-01, Re 316 Main Street. At this time, Council, I will close the council meeting and open the public hearing, and I will ask Mr. Warkentine to introduce this file.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is an application for variance, file V-2020-01 for 613 Main Street. The owner and the applicant for this variance is Michelle Semeschuk. Purpose of the variance is twofold. Firstly, to allow a front yard setback of 15.3 feet, whereas the RLD residential low-density zone requires a minimum of 25 feet. And secondly, to allow an east side yard of 2 feet, whereas the RLD zone requires a minimum of 4 feet. The applicant is proposing to build an attached garage and addition onto the existing house. The front yard variance would be to bring the setback of the existing house into compliance with the City of Steinbach zoning bylaw 2100. Notices pursuant to the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on the file. The comments are provided in the agenda package, and provided that the risks related to lot grading and site drainage with the reduction in the required side yard are mitigated, and this would be a requirement at time of permit. Recommendation is to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Warkentine. Is the applicant here tonight? Do you wish to speak? Well, if there's questions of council. Okay. Council, are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I will ask if is there anyone here wanting to object to this file? Is there anyone here wanting to object to this file? I have to ask this 3 times. Is there anyone here wanting to object to this file? Okay. Well, seeing that there's nobody here wanting to object, there are no questions, and at this time you don't want to speak, we will then close the public hearing and open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Zwaagstra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Penner? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a fairly straightforward application. The applicant wishes to construct a garage, and the key issue here is the side yard. Obviously, we're bringing the existing house into conformity is something that we would do automatically here. Obviously the 2 feet, that is fairly close, but I think that when you look at the fact the staff are recommending that we approve, and that as a condition of the variance that the approval is subject to a lot grading plan being submitted at the time of permitting, so that will be addressed there. And also the fact that we have no objections. Obviously, none of the neighbors have any concerns. I think it's appropriate to allow this to go ahead.
Okay, anything further, Councillor Penner?
Further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
No.
Well, council, yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. There are no objectors. And one thing I think we have to remember about this property, in this zoning, if there was a detached garage being built, it would be allowed to be 2 feet from the property line as well. So really then, this variance isn't that far-fetched. It is, it's something that we can improve. So we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 7, there is no delegation. There are no reports and recommendations from the city manager. We'll go to number 9, number 9A, accounts payable. That's in the back of the book. Council, you've all had a chance to look over that. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
Got to pay the bills.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Okay. Anything in closing?
No, sir.
Council, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We've got 9B, the bylaw 2142. This is the Watershed District, third reading. Council, we started this last week with first and second reading. This is renaming the St. Rat River Conservation District to the, to St. Rat River, is it Roseau?
St. Rat Roseau Watershed.
St. Rat River, or St. Rat Roseau Watershed,
Yep.
okay? Councillor Hebert, do you have anything to add at this time?
No, I think I spoke on it the last meeting, and it's pretty straightforward that our area is staying the same as before, even though the province is downgrading from 18 water or conservation districts to 14 watersheds. So, but we're talking of St. Rat Roseau is staying, our boundaries are staying the same.
Okay. Well, it is quite large already as it is, so I guess that's why they're not giving you any extra work at this time. Council will go directly into third reading. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner.
Nothing further to say.
Further?
Nothing further?
Nothing in closing, so we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we've got 9C, bylaw 2140, Parkhill, Phase 2. We're going into first reading. Starts on page 19 of your package. Mr. Warkentine, could we please ask you to introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is rezoning bylaw 2140 for Phase 2 of Parkhill development on Mackenzie Avenue in Steinbach. The application is to proceed with the rezoning. This would be first reading, and what it does propose is to develop a number of single-family and multifamily lots within the general area as indicated on the map on page 24. To a mix of RSF, which is residential single family, RLD, residential low density, RMD, residential medium density, and RHD, residential high density. Recommendation is to give this bylaw first reading. At that time, it could be scheduled for a public hearing at sometime in March.
Thank you, Mr. Warkentine. Okay, council, what they're asking for is to do a little bit of rezoning and change the zoning and some of the lot configuration. We're looking for a motion for first reading. Councillor Zwaagstra.
I'll move first. Yeah, first
Move
reading.
first reading. Second by Councillor Penner. Go ahead, Councillor Zwaagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a significant development, and obviously residential is going ahead. What this does is, first reading here is to approve more of a mix, so that instead of just residential single family and medium density, now there'd be a combination of high density included as well. And so I look forward to hearing what the public has to say, but on the face of it, it seems like a reasonable application.
Okay. Anything further?
Nothing further?
Anything further of council?
Thank you.
Anything in closing?
No.
Okay, council, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of first reading? That is carried. 9E, we have excavator license on page 41.
Mine.
This is yours, Mr. Mayor.
This is mine. Motion to
Motion.
approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Councillor Penner. Yes, Mr. Warkentine.
This is
Just wanted to point out 9D, bylaw 2143.
Oh, sorry.
Missed.
I'm getting ahead of myself here.
You're too excited.
You know what? I got so excited for the excavator licenses that I just missed a whole line. Sorry. 9D, bylaw 2143, the repeal bylaw 2072, first reading. That's found on page 33. Mr. Workentine, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw 2143 is a bylaw that's related to bylaw 2140 that council just gave first reading to. This pertains to the secondary plan that has been filed and registered for this same neighborhood. For some time, this whole area has been subject to a secondary plan. Secondary plans do provide a much more broad land use and planning context with respect to developments such as this one. However, with the information that is on file, there's very limited information, and essentially the secondary plan doesn't provide any additional information to what a zoning bylaw or the concept plan that's been approved for the area already provides. So at this point, it is recommended and also requested from the developer that bylaw 2143 be given first reading, which would enable the secondary plan for this area to be repealed, and then this development would proceed solely on an approved concept plan and rezoning bylaw as already initiated under bylaw 2140.
Okay, just a question for you, Mr. Workentine. Does the secondary plan have to be repealed before we can go forward with the second and third reading for the bylaw we just
That's correct.
read for? Okay,
Yeah, and that would, however, the public hearings for both bylaws can be dealt with concurrently.
okay. So right now, we're just looking for first reading.
That's right.
So that we can go to a public hearing on it.
Correct.
Okay, council, looking for a motion to approve first reading on the repeal. Okay, Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As development proceeds in our community, their supply and demand changes, whether residential, single-family, medium density, high density, and this is acknowledging that there's a new plan that was a better fit on the table for the community to move forward on. So repealing the original bylaw, a secondary plan is not out of the ordinary on this.
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Nope. Okay. Council, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of first reading? That is carried. Okay, now we're back to excavators license 90. Motion to approve by Councillor Penner. Do we have seconders? Councillor Zwaagstra?
Provision.
Any comments? Any comments, Councillor Penner? None? Anything further?
No, I'll support this one.
Okay. Nothing further of council? Anything in closing? Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, 9F, supplemental property tax adjustments. That is on page 42. Council, there's a few adjustments to be made on a couple of rolls here. We're looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
Only thing, these are routine, we get them here once in a while, and so nothing further on these.
Okay. Anything further? Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 9G, the farm use payback, starts on page 43. Mr. Workney, this is not all that common. Can I ask you to introduce this?
Sure. This farm use tax payback amount that's provided on page 43 is similar to a supplementary tax notice. However, there is a category within the Assessment Act that provides for what's called a farm use assessment. So as long as property is used for farming purposes It is assessed at a lower rate than what typical farmland would be assessed at if it was being considered for development purposes. Essentially, what it does do is it gives the advantage to those who are actively engaged in farming, a reasonable advantage to have that valuation reflect what actual farmland is worth. However, when property that has that category is redeveloped, there is a payback provision, whereas the city has the opportunity to go back 5 years and can charge back taxes to make up the difference between those two assessment values. And this is the subject of the one item that's on that schedule, and recommendation is for council to approve that.
Okay. So this total is the total taxes difference of the last 5 years?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, council, we're looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Zwaagstra, second by Councillor Penner. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this makes sense.
Anything further?
Nothing further.
Anything further of council? Moving to closing. Okay, council, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, number 10, council question period. Are there any questions of council? Okay, seeing none, we will go to 11A. We have the Epp Library. This is the December 18 and January 15, 2020, the minutes. Starts on page 44. Council, how would you like to proceed? Take it as information? Okay, and we've got 11B, the Arm of St. Anne, Shock Trauma Air Rescue Services, S.T.A.R.S. That's on page 47. Council, how would you like to proceed on that?
Information.
Take it as information? Perfect. Okay, and council, we have the March of Dimes, that's 11C. There's a letter, a support request, and there is a letter, like a draft letter on page 50. Council, what is your, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to endorse a letter of support on this?
I don't think we have enough info.
Okay. So consensus is to take as information?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, number 12, other business. Okay, seeing none. 13, we need a motion for adjournment. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments? Okay. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Next regular council meeting is Tuesday, February 18th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Thank you, council.